Hey there, science fans! Let's talk about chemicals. You might hear that word and think of bubbling potions in a lab, or maybe scary stuff in big, bold warning labels. But guess what? Chemicals are much more than that. They are, quite simply, the building blocks of everything in the universe. Yes, everything. The air you breathe, chemicals. The water you drink, that's a chemical too. Even you and I were made of chemicals. It's pretty amazing when you stop and think about it. So, chemical isn't a dirty word, it's just a word for matter itself. So what are these building blocks? Well, think of tiny, tiny Lego bricks. These are called atoms. Atoms are the smallest units of an element, like oxygen or carbon or hydrogen. When these atoms join together, they form molecules. Water, for example, is a molecule. It's made of 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen atom. We call it H2O. That's its chemical name. Everything around us, from a giant star to a tiny ladybug, is made up of different combinations of these atoms and molecules. It's a cosmic construction set, and chemicals are the pieces. Now, some people think natural things are different from chemicals. But that's not quite right, scientifically speaking. An apple fresh from the tree? It's packed with chemicals. Things like water, sugars, fructose, glucose, vitamins like vitamin C, which is ascorbic acid, and fibers. These are all natural chemicals that your body uses. The lovely smell of a rose? That comes from a complex mixture of natural chemical compounds. So, natural things are absolutely 100% made of chemicals, just like everything else. Nature is the original chemist, after all. So, let's get this straight from the start. The word chemical itself doesn't mean something is bad or dangerous or artificial. It just means it's a substance, a type of matter. Water is a chemical. Salt is a chemical. The oxygen we need to live is a chemical. Understanding this is the very first step to understanding how the world works and how we can live safely and healthily within it. It's all about knowing which chemicals do what and how they interact with us and our environment. Science! For a long time, new chemicals were seen as signs of progress. Think about it. Scientists discovered new ways to make medicines. They created new materials like plastics that made life easier in many ways. People were excited about these advancements. We learned how to make fertilizers that helped grow more food for more people. We developed dyes that made our clothes more colorful. For many years, chemistry was seen as a powerful tool for good, helping humanity solve problems and improve our lives. This positive view was widespread and celebrated. But then, things started to change a bit. As industries grew, sometimes accidents happened. There were stories about pollution from factories affecting rivers or the air. Scientists also started to learn that some chemicals, even those used with good intentions, could have unintended side effects on health or the environment. Think about pesticides like DDT. It helped fight diseases like malaria by killing mosquitoes, which was great. But later, scientists found it was also harming birds and other wildlife. These kinds of discoveries made people start to worry. This growing concern, sometimes mixed with a lack of understanding, led to what some people call chemophobia. Phobia means fear. So, chemophobia is an irrational fear of chemicals. It's the idea that all chemicals are bad, especially if they are man-made. This fear was sometimes fueled by scary headlines in the news or by a misunderstanding of complex scientific information. It's easy to be afraid of what we don't fully understand, especially when we hear conflicting messages about safety and danger. The conversation became less about specific chemicals and more about a general distrust. And sometimes, let's be honest, this fear has been used in marketing. You might see products advertised as chemical-free. But as we just learned, that's impossible. Everything is made of chemicals. What they usually mean is free of certain synthetic chemicals or free of harsh chemicals. While choosing products with fewer potentially harmful ingredients can be a good idea, the chemical-free label itself can add to the confusion and the fear. It makes it seem like all chemicals are enemies, which just isn't true. We need a more balanced view. Now, it's super important to say that some chemicals can indeed be harmful. This is absolutely true, and science doesn't shy away from this. Certain substances can irritate our skin, bother our lungs if we breathe them in, or cause more serious health problems if we are exposed to them in the wrong way or in large amounts. For example, the chemicals in some strong cleaning products, like bleach or oven cleaner, can be corrosive. That means they can damage surfaces, including your skin, if not handled carefully. This is why they have warning labels. How does a chemical cause harm? Well, different chemicals act in different ways. Some can interfere with the normal processes in our bodies. They might disrupt how our cells communicate or how our organs function. This is what we call toxicity. A toxic chemical is one that can cause damage to a living organism. Scientists, called toxicologists, study this very carefully. They work to understand which chemicals are toxic, how they affect the body, and at what levels they become dangerous. It's a complex field because our bodies are complex too. Here's a really key idea. The dose makes the poison. This famous saying comes from Paracelsus, a physician from way back in the 16th century. What does it mean? It means that almost any substance, even something usually harmless, can be harmful if you take in too much of it. Even water. If you drink way too much water very quickly, it can be dangerous for your body. On the flip side, many substances that are toxic in high doses can be safe or even beneficial in very small doses. Think about medicines. They are chemicals designed to help us, but taking too much can be harmful. Besides the dose or the amount, another critical factor is exposure. How do you come into contact with the chemical? Do you breathe it in, eat it, or does it touch your skin? And for how long are you exposed? A brief one-time exposure to a tiny amount of a mildly irritating chemical might not cause any problem at all. But long-term, repeated exposure, even to low levels of some chemicals, could potentially lead to health issues over time. So scientists look at both the dose and the type and length of exposure when they assess risk. Let's take a walk through a typical day and see where we meet chemicals. Don't worry, this isn't to scare you. It's just to see how much they are a part of our normal lives. Wake up. First, you probably brush your teeth. Toothpaste contains chemicals like fluoride to protect your teeth, abrasives to clean, and flavoring agents. Then, you might hop in the shower and use soap or body wash, shampoo, and conditioner. These all have chemicals that help clean your skin and hair, make them smell nice, and create lather. These are all designed for safe, everyday use. Next stop, the kitchen. If you're making breakfast, the food itself is made of chemicals, as we know. If you use a non-stick pan, it has a special chemical coating. Cleaning up after? Dish soap, dishwasher detergent, and countertop sprays are all chemical mixtures designed to break down grease and kill germs. Some of the packaging your food comes in might contain chemicals to keep it fresh or stable. And the fruits and vegetables you eat? They might have tiny residues of pesticides, which is why it's always a good idea to wash them thoroughly before eating. Moving into the living room or your bedroom, you'll find more chemicals. Your furniture might contain flame retardants, which are chemicals added to make them less likely to catch fire. Your electronics, like your TV or computer, are made with many different chemicals in their components and casings. If you use air fresheners or scented candles, those release chemicals into the air to create a pleasant smell. Even the paint on your walls is a complex mixture of chemical pigments, binders, and solvents that dry to form a protective and decorative coating. Now, reading all this might make it sound like you're swimming in a chemical soup. But remember, most of these exposures are at very low levels. Many of these products have been tested for safety when used as directed. The key is that our bodies are pretty good at dealing with small amounts of many substances. The presence of a chemical doesn't automatically mean danger. It's all about the specific chemical, the amount, the dose, how you're exposed, and how often. Knowledge helps us navigate this world confidently. So we know chemicals are everywhere, and not all of them are harmless. What can we do? The goal isn't to live in a bubble or become afraid of everything around us. That's no fun, and it's not practical. Instead, we can take some simple, smart steps to reduce our exposure to potentially harmful chemicals, especially the unnecessary ones. This is about making informed choices, not about creating more anxiety. Small changes can make a difference to your peace of mind and your well-being. One of the best things you can do is to become a label reader. When you buy cleaning products, cosmetics, or even packaged foods, take a moment to look at the ingredient list. You don't need to be a chemist to get some clues. If a list is super long with many complex names you don't recognize for a simple product, you might look for alternatives with simpler formulations. Pay attention to warning labels too. They are there for a reason. Words like danger, warning, or caution tell you about the potential hazard and how to use the product safely. Good old fresh air is your friend. Make sure to ventilate your home well, especially when you're cleaning with strong products, painting, or if you've just brought new furniture or carpets into your home. They can sometimes release chemicals, a process called off-gassing. Open windows regularly to let fresh air circulate. This helps to dilute any airborne chemicals and reduce your indoor exposure. Using an exhaust fan in the bathroom when showering and in the kitchen when cooking also helps remove moisture and airborne particles. When it comes to food, washing fruits and vegetables thoroughly under running water can help remove pesticide residues, dirt, and bacteria. Choosing fresh, whole foods as much as possible can also reduce your intake of additives, preservatives, and chemicals from packaging. For cleaning, you might consider using simpler, more traditional cleaners for some tasks. Things like vinegar and water for glass, or baking soda as a mild abrasive, can be effective and reduce the number of specialized chemical products you need. It's about finding a balance that works for you. There's a very common idea out there. Natural always means safe, and synthetic or man-made always means dangerous. It sounds sensible, right? We often associate nature with purity and health, but in the world of chemistry, things are a bit more complicated than that. The truth is, a chemical's safety doesn't depend on whether it was made in a lab or grew on a plant. It depends on its specific properties, its structure, and how it interacts with our bodies. Think about it. Mother Nature has created some of the most potent toxins known. Many plants produce chemicals to defend themselves from being eaten. Some mushrooms, like the death cap, are incredibly poisonous if ingested, and they are 100% natural. Snake venom? Totally natural and definitely not something you want in your system. Even things like arsenic, lead, and mercury are naturally occurring elements found in the Earth's crust, and they can be very harmful to humans. So, natural does not automatically equal safe. On the other hand, many synthetic chemicals are designed to be very safe and incredibly useful. Many life-saving medicines are synthetic. The vitamins added to fortify our foods are often man-made but identical to the ones found in nature, and they help prevent deficiencies. The materials used to make safety equipment, like helmets or sterile medical devices, are often synthetic. The key is always the specific chemical, its concentration, and how we are exposed to it, not just where it came from. So, when you see a product labeled natural, it's good to still be a thoughtful consumer. That label can mean different things to different companies, and it isn't always regulated in the same way. And if you see something labeled chemical-free, remember that's scientifically impossible. Instead of focusing only on natural versus synthetic, try to learn about the specific ingredients and choose products from companies that are transparent about what's in them and how they ensure safety. It's about being informed, not just following a label. It might seem like there are so many chemicals out there, how can we possibly know what's safe? Well, the good news is, we're not alone in figuring this out. There are scientists and organizations whose whole job is to study chemicals and help keep us safe. In many countries, government agencies are responsible for this important work. For example, in the United States, you have the Environmental Protection Agency and the Food and Drug Administration. Other countries have similar bodies. These agencies have a big task. They review scientific data on chemicals. They look at how chemicals are made, how they are used, and what happens to them in the environment. They conduct or fund research to understand the potential health effects of different substances on people and animals. Based on all this information, they set safety standards and regulations. This might mean banning certain very dangerous chemicals, restricting the use of others, or setting limits on how much of a chemical is allowed in food, water, or consumer products. Now, is the system perfect? Not always. Science is a process of learning, and sometimes new information comes to light that changes our understanding of a chemical's safety. Testing every single chemical in every possible situation is a huge challenge. Sometimes regulations can take a long time to develop or update, and sometimes there's debate among scientists or the public about how strict the rules should be. It's a complex area, balancing safety, innovation, and economic factors. The goal is always to protect public health and the environment. Despite these challenges, these regulatory agencies and the scientists who work for them provide a crucial safety net. They work to ensure that the chemicals we encounter in our daily lives, from the medicines we take to the products we use in our homes, meet certain safety standards. They also provide information to the public so we can make more informed choices. So, while it's good to be aware and make smart personal decisions, it's also reassuring to know that there are dedicated people working behind the scenes to evaluate and manage chemical risks on a larger scale. So, how do scientists actually figure out if a chemical is safe or if it might be harmful? It's a fascinating process that involves a lot of careful investigation and testing. This field of science is called toxicology. Toxicologists are like chemical detectives. They study the adverse effects of chemical, physical, or biological agents on living organisms and the ecosystem. They want to know what harm a substance can cause and how much of it is needed to cause that harm. Remember, the dose makes the poison. Scientists use a variety of methods. They might start by studying the chemical structure of a substance to predict how it might behave in the body. Then, they often conduct laboratory studies using cells grown in dishes or on microorganisms. This can give them early clues about how a chemical might affect living systems. For many chemicals, especially those intended for wide use like medicines or food additives, studies on laboratory animals may be conducted. These studies are done under strict ethical guidelines and help scientists understand how a chemical affects a whole living organism. Researchers also conduct epidemiological studies. This means they look at patterns of health and illness in human populations. For example, they might compare a group of people who have been exposed to a certain chemical, perhaps through their jobs, with a group of people who haven't to see if there are any differences in health outcomes. These studies can be very complex because humans are exposed to many different things in their lives, but they can provide valuable real-world information. All this data is then carefully analyzed. An important part of the scientific process is peer review. Before a study is published in a scientific journal, other experts in the field review it critically. They check the methods, the results, and the conclusions to make sure the research is sound. Science is also constantly evolving. New research builds on previous findings, and our understanding can change over time as we learn more. This rigorous, ongoing process of testing, analysis, and review is how science works to build a reliable body of knowledge about chemicals and their effects. So, we've been on quite a journey through the world of chemicals. We've learned that chemicals are, quite literally, everywhere and in everything. They are the fundamental building blocks of our planet and ourselves. This isn't something to be scared of. It's just the way the universe works. From the water we drink to the air we breathe, from the food we eat to the clothes we wear, chemicals are an integral part of our existence. Accepting this basic fact is the first step towards a healthier relationship with them. The key takeaway, I hope, is to respect chemicals, not to fear them blindly. Understanding that some chemicals can be harmful, especially in certain doses or with certain types of exposure, is important. But so is understanding that many chemicals are essential for life or provide us with great benefits. It's about finding a balance. It's about being informed. Instead of chemophobia, let's aim for chemo knowledge. Okay, I made that word up, but you get the idea. Knowledge empowers us. By learning a little bit about how chemicals work, where we encounter them, and how to read labels, we can make smarter, more informed choices for ourselves and our families. We can choose products that are effective yet minimize unnecessary exposures. We can ventilate our homes, wash our produce, and support practices that are safer for both our health and the environment. These small actions, based on understanding rather than panic, can make a real difference in our daily lives and our overall well-being. Science is our best tool for navigating this complex world of chemicals. Scientists are constantly working to understand more, to develop safer alternatives, and to help us live better lives. While the system isn't perfect, and there's always more to learn, the pursuit of knowledge helps us manage risks and harness the benefits that chemistry offers. So, be curious, ask questions, and use that amazing brain of yours to make choices that are right for you. Don't fear chemicals. Understand them, respect them, and use your knowledge to thrive.